My name is Brian Whittaker. I'm the Chief Executive of the Business Trust, and thank you all for being here today. The idea that Golden says he has a hidden treasure for you is to make sure you stick around through the course of the presentation and wait to see what he's talking about. I'm here to report to you on the work of the Business Trust over the last year, and in doing that, I would like to put this into context. During his budget speech earlier this year, the Minister of Finance gave what I thought was a really interesting description of the global crisis. He said that as a global motor manufacturer cuts back on production, so on the other side of the world, the maker of catalytic converters in Uitenhage finds that their orders have dropped. And as a consequence of that, the miner at the platinum mine in Rustenburg finds that there is less platinum to sell. And eventually, the lady who sells food to the miners at the mine gate takes home less money every month. The year before last, in the presentations that we made as part of the work of the Business Trust, we told the story of a person, Marcy Toilet, one of the people like the lady at the mine gate. And you'll discover, if you look carefully at the way somebody like Marcy Toilet lives, that she would make something like 1,100 rand a month as a result of selling food. She would then, though, have to support a family of up to 8 people. And the consequence of that is that that family, if you divide the income across the number of people, would live on less than the equivalent of $1 a day. I think that sometimes, when we hear about people who live on less than $1 a day, we think they are in distant lands, Burkina Faso or somewhere like that. They are our compatriots. And as the world gets tougher and tougher, the impact of this crisis on them is going to be extremely severe. How should we respond? I fear that countries are going to be enticed into protectionism as they think about how to respond to this crisis. Their instinct will be to protect their own interests, and you can see some of this happening already. Companies will be driven to reduce employment and cut social programs. Governments will be tempted to exclude social partners as their budgets become constrained, and communities will be at risk of fracturing as they scramble for fewer and fewer resources. The world is heading into extremely difficult times, and the way we respond is going to have a dramatic impact on not only people in South Africa, but around the world. It's going to have an impact on people for generations to come. What's the central choice we've got here, as individuals, as companies, as countries? The core choice is whether we should batten down the hatches and protect our own interests, or cooperate to rise above the crisis. We have to decide how we're going to do this. The pressures to protect our own interests are going to be severe. In the case of South Africa, the social partners have agreed to work together to address this crisis. At a meeting of the President's Joint Working Group that took place earlier this year, Business, Government and Labour decided that they would form a task team to think together about how to address this issue. The team was eventually convened under the banner of NEDLAC and included community representation at that point. And they eventually decided to do these things, that South Africa should, in the first instance, try to limit the impact of this crisis on the poor. I think a tremendously important thing for Business, Government and Labour to agree to do. Secondly, that we should continue to build our capacity to grow the economy and to develop communities. There's a great risk in this kind of crisis that we take short-term measures that will damage us seriously in the future. So the second thing that's agreed is that we should continue to build capacity. Third, that we should develop key sectors where South Africa can be competitive and concentrate on the development of entrepreneurs who, through this crisis and after it, will have to continue to risk their resources in order to produce the goods and services that society needs. Fourthly, that we should integrate those people who are marginalized from mainstream economic activity, those people who live in essentially the informal economy. And finally, that we should streamline delivery and efficiency, especially government delivery and efficiency. I think it's tremendously important that as a country, we make a decision that what we're going to do to cooperate. And the first part of what we're going to do is to try to limit the impact of this crisis on the poor. What's the key challenge, having made these decisions? You know, as South Africans, if you were to ask us to create lists of what should be done, we're quite good at that. If you were to ask us to convert those lists of what should be done into some kind of policy, we're not bad at that. We're even quite good at developing the strategies. The problem arises when you get to the point of finding practical ways of doing what we all know needs to get done. It's the practical, operational stuff that trips us up. And so part of the message that we have to give here, as I end this introductory piece on this year's results presentation, is that we have to find those opportunities that are real, that we can act on, that we can act on quickly, and that we can act on together.